Harper Quinn, 28, stood in the middle of her apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes and silence. The echo of Eli's voice was still in the walls, ghost-like, irritatingly confident, like the breakup hadn't even scratched his surface. The kind of man who ended things with a handshake, not a conversation. And Junie? Gone. Just like that. She didn't cry. Not right away. Not until she stepped on Junie's favorite squeaky toy by accident and the high-pitched wheeze cracked something inside her. She knelt, clutching the worn rubber duck to her chest like it could fill the space her dog used to occupy. Like it could explain how she'd let him walk away not just with her time, her trust, but with her girl. The breakup had started like 100 other endings. A quiet dinner, a muttered, "We've changed," some long-winded garbage about needing space. But when she said, "At least I'll have Junie," Eli tilted his head and said, "Maybe she should stay with me for a while, just until you get your feet back under you." And Harper, stupid, heartbroken Harper, had nodded. It wasn't until 3 days later, when she finally opened her camera roll looking for a picture of Junie to cheer herself up, that it hit her. Junie wasn't just a dog. She was the last piece of comfort Harper had. Her constant, her quiet, her proof that she hadn't failed at everything. She dialed Eli, straight to voicemail. She sent a message. "Can I come get her this weekend?" His reply? "Thought we agreed she's better off here." She's settled. It's what's best for her. The arrogance of it. The assumption that he got to decide. Harper stared at the screen, fingers twitching with rage. Junie had been hers since the day she signed the adoption papers alone. Eli hadn't even wanted a dog. Said they were a lot. But then Junie came along and softened him just enough to tolerate her. He only started showing her off when people began complimenting how well-trained she was. Like Junie's goodness somehow proved his. And now he had her. And Harper had nothing but a hollow apartment, a bruised heart, and a growing awareness that she'd made a mistake letting him take anything. Especially Junie. She stood up, dropped the toy into a drawer, and took a breath so sharp it hurt her lungs. This wasn't about a dog anymore. It was about taking back what he didn't earn. And she wasn't going to beg. He would. The first time she saw Junie again, it was through a screen. Harper was at her desk, halfway through an email she had no interest in sending, when her coworker messaged her a post. "Isn't this your dog?" She clicked the link, and there she was. Junie. Sitting beside Eli on a picnic blanket, tongue out, looking directly at the camera. His arm draped casually over her back like some proud dad with a trophy kid. The caption read, "Park day with my girl." Harper stared at it, every muscle in her face frozen. Her girl. He said that like Junie wasn't hers first. Like he hadn't shown zero interest in crate training or long walks or 6 a.m. potty runs. He didn't even know that Junie hated the sound of wind chimes, or that she only ate if her kibble was mixed with warm water and a splash of chicken broth. Harper had learned those things slowly, by watching, listening, loving. Eli just liked how Junie looked in pictures. It wasn't a mistake that he posted it on his public feed. He knew she'd see it, knew exactly what he was doing. Twisting the knife. And that girl sitting next to him? The one with the fake laugh and manicured nails holding Junie's leash? Harper didn't recognize her, but she recognized the type. The replacement. She closed the post, heart racing, then reopened it 5 seconds later like a masochist. She stared at Junie's eyes, searching for a sign. Anything that her dog was unhappy. But Junie looked content, relaxed. Like she didn't remember the nights curled up on Harper's chest during thunderstorms. Like Harper didn't still keep her blanket folded at the foot of her bed just in case. She didn't cry. Not this time. She opened a new browser tab and started typing. "Can I sue for dog custody?" The answers weren't promising. Legally, pets were still considered property in their state. And since Eli's name was on the adoption form, because he was the one who picked Junie up while Harper was stuck in traffic that day, he had the stronger claim, unless she could prove neglect. Or that she was the primary caretaker. Or maybe if he did something stupid. She opened a note on her phone, titled it, Operation Junie. Step 1. Find proof he doesn't know how to take care of her. Step 2. Use it. The heartbreak hadn't faded, but it had changed shape. Hardened, focused. He thought he won. He thought he got the dog, the narrative, the new life. But Harper had something he'd never understand. Loyalty. And Junie? Junie remembered that. Somewhere deep in her golden, fur-covered heart, Junie knew who she belonged to. Harper tried to move on. She really did. She deleted Eli's number. She muted his Instagram. She even went out with a guy her friend Rhea swore would make her forget everything but dessert. He didn't. Because no matter how well-dressed, well-mannered, or well-meaning these men were, none of them knew the sound Junie made when she stretched in the morning. Or the way she tilted her head every time Harper sang off key. Or how she used to nudge Harper's hand when she sensed a bad mood coming on. No questions asked, just soft understanding. Junie had been her constant when Eli was drifting. Her anchor when things felt off. And now that anchor had been ripped out and dropped somewhere Harper couldn't reach. She started waking up earlier. The apartment was too quiet, but she forced herself to get out of bed and go for walks alone. The leash she used to wrap around her wrist stayed in a drawer, but the rhythm of walking, step, breath, step, felt familiar, like muscle memory from another life. It was during one of those walks that she passed by the old vet clinic. She hadn't been back since the breakup. Without thinking, she stepped inside. The place smelled the same, antiseptic and peanut butter treats. Her eyes drifted to the front counter where Denise, the receptionist, looked up in recognition. "Harper?" She smiled. "Hey, we haven't seen you or Junie in forever." Harper hesitated, then leaned in. "She's with Eli now." Denise's smile faded a little. "Oh, right. I saw he brought her in last week. She looked good." "Yeah?" Denise nodded. Though he did seem a little clueless. Asked if she needed to be groomed here. I told him we're a veterinary clinic, not a spa. Harper's heart leapt. And he forgot which vaccines she was due for. Didn't have her records. Just said, "Is she up to date?" Like she's a car. That was all Harper needed to hear. She smiled politely, thanked Denise, and left. But inside, her mind was whirring. Proof, witnesses, patterns. Eli was winging it. And eventually, he'd slip. Back at home, Harper pulled out the shoebox of Junie's things. Notebooks with training notes. Receipts for food, flea meds, vet bills. All in her name. She laid them out across the coffee table like evidence at a trial. She wasn't ready to go to court yet. But she was done sitting quietly while a man who once called Junie a walking commitment pretended to be Father of the Year online. No, this wouldn't end in flames or fists. It would end with facts. And when the time was right, she'd take back what was always hers. It wasn't jealousy that made Harper open Eli's Instagram again. It was strategy. She scrolled through his profile like a private investigator, zooming in on backgrounds, noting timestamps, and silently cataloging everything wrong. There she was, Junie in photos meant to provoke her, wearing tiny sunglasses, tied to a cafe chair, wrapped in fairy lights for some twisted version of date night. It was all a performance. And Junie looked tired. Not neglected. Not abused, just duller. Like someone had dimmed the brightness on her. Her tail wasn't wagging in the way Harper remembered. The wild, sweeping blur of joy that knocked over coffee cups and bruised shins. She looked like a dog who wasn't unhappy but wasn't home either. And then Harper saw it. A story post. Eli laughing in the background while his new girlfriend tried to get Junie to sit pretty. The girl's voice whined. "She won't listen. She's being difficult." Harper's stomach twisted. Of course she won't listen. You're not hers. Harper turned off her phone and stared at the ceiling, adrenaline burning just beneath her skin. This wasn't some ex clinging to photos for closure. This was a man parading a living, breathing being like a trophy. and Junie was losing herself in it. She needed to act. Not just to soothe her own heartbreak, but because Junie deserved better. That night, Harper opened her laptop and signed up for a 6-week dog behavior course downtown. If the law wouldn't listen to emotion, maybe it would listen to education. She'd become fluent in Junie, learn every signal, every whimper, every wag. She'd show that no one knew her dog like she did. The first class was held in a warehouse painted in calming neutrals. The trainer, a wiry woman named Mags, ran the place like a drill sergeant with a soft heart. Harper listened intently, asked questions, took notes like she was preparing for trial, because in her mind she was. On the third session, Mags noticed her intensity. "You training for a dog? Or a war?" she joked. Harper smiled without blinking. Sometimes they're the same thing. She didn't mention the breakup, or Eli, or the dog she could only see in stolen seconds through a screen, but every lesson she learned, every new insight about canine communication was a weapon in her quiet war. By the end of the course, Harper had a folder of behavioral science, scent theory, and bonding patterns, plus a certification to prove it. Not because she needed it to be a good dog mom, but because soon, she'd be ready. And when the time came, Junie would know her, not through photos, not through guilt, through instinct. Harper didn't stage it. It just happened. A Sunday morning, unusually warm for spring. She'd gone to the farmer's market to clear her head, maybe buy flowers she wouldn't remember to water. She was standing at a honey stand, debating between lavender and wild clover, when she heard it. The soft jingle of a leash. She turned instinctively. And there she was. Junie. Harper's breath caught in her throat. Junie was pulling against a leash held by someone Harper didn't recognize. A guy, early 20s, clearly distracted, scrolling through his phone. Junie looked up, and for a second, everything around Harper stopped. The chatter, the market music, the bees hovering near jars. It all dissolved into the way Junie's ears perked and her body stilled, tense like a string pulled taut. Harper didn't move, didn't call her name. She just knelt, slowly, hands open. Junie's leash slipped from the guy's hand like it was nothing. And Junie ran. Right into Harper's arms. Full force, no hesitation. A whimper caught between a cry and a sigh as Harper wrapped her arms around the warm, familiar weight of her dog. Her girl. Harper buried her face in Junie's fur, the familiar scent of peanut butter and lavender shampoo making her eyes sting. Junie pawed at her chest, tail wagging hard enough to knock over a nearby basket of radishes. The leash guy jogged over, startled. Hey, you can't just— She's not your dog." Harper stood, Junie still wrapped around her leg like a vine. "Actually," she said, her voice calm, measured. "She is." The guy blinked. "Eli said I could walk her." Of course he did. Eli always passed off responsibility like loose change. Harper took a breath. "Tell Eli Junie ran into someone she remembers, someone who never stopped loving her." She walked away. Junie didn't look back once. By the time she got to her car, Harper's hands were shaking. She sat in the driver's seat with Junie curled beside her, head on her thigh, eyes closed like it was the first time in weeks she could truly rest. Harper didn't rush to post about it. She didn't call anyone. This moment was sacred, undocumented, real. She knew Eli would come for her. Maybe not physically, but online, in texts, in guilt-laced voicemails. He'd spin it however he needed to save face. But Harper had something stronger than screenshots. She had proof. In the way Junie ran without command. In the way her tail never stopped wagging. In the way she chose. And that choice was all Harper needed. Harper didn't sleep that night. Not deeply, anyway. Every time Junie shifted beside her, Harper would wake just to check. That she was real. That this wasn't some dream her heart had conjured just to collapse come morning. But Junie was there, curled at the edge of the bed like she'd never left. Head resting on Harper's ankle, breathing slow and safe. By morning, Harper had 5 missed calls from Eli and a text. "You kidnapped my dog." She read it without reacting. Then another came. "You're insane. I gave James one favor and you go full psycho." There it was. The Eli she'd been waiting for. The mask off. No charm, no calculated wording, just raw entitlement. She didn't respond. Instead, she booked Junie a vet appointment. It had been nearly 3 months since her last checkup, and Harper wanted receipts. Not just for health reasons, though those mattered, but because she needed everything documented. If Eli even thought about legal action, she'd be ready. At the clinic, Dr. Alvarado's eyes lit up when Junie pranced through the door. "Well, look who's back," he said, crouching down. "Haven't seen you in a while, girl." Harper didn't explain everything. She didn't have to. Dr. Alvarado noticed the mats behind Junie's ears, the overgrown nails, the subtle weight loss. He clicked his tongue softly, then said, "Not dangerous, but definitely signs she hasn't been getting the care she's used to." Harper's jaw clenched. "She's been in transition," she said quietly. "Well," he replied, checking Junie's heart rate. "She's back where she belongs." When they returned home, Harper opened her laptop and created a folder titled Custody Defense. She uploaded the vet records, receipts from the pet store, training certificates, photos, everything. Every trace that proved Junie's life had been built by her hands, not Eli's. The texts kept coming. "You're going to regret this. I'll get the cops involved." She was happy with me. But Harper had lived with Eli long enough to know the difference between anger and panic. This was panic, because for once, someone had taken something back from him, and he didn't know how to deal with not being in control. She muted his number and poured herself a glass of wine. Junie was asleep on the rug, paws twitching in a dream. Maybe she was chasing something. Maybe she was finally free. Harper watched her, fingers tapping lightly on the wineglass stem. Eli could threaten all he wanted. He could bark, howl, posture. But he forgot the one thing Harper had over him. Junie didn't just recognize her. She chose her. And the truth was, in court or out, dogs never lie about who they love. It took exactly 4 days for Eli to stop threatening and start begging. Harper had just finished her 3rd Zoom meeting of the morning when her phone buzzed. An unknown number, local. She almost declined it. But something told her to answer. "Harper?" Eli's voice was brittle, strained. She didn't respond. He filled the silence like he always did. "Look, I think things got a little out of hand." She said nothing. "I mean, I didn't mean for it to go this way. I just thought maybe you needed space. And I thought keeping Junie would help." Still, she stayed quiet. Eli exhaled hard through the line. "Look, I don't want drama, okay? I'm just asking. Can we talk? Just the 2 of us. Maybe meet at the park, like before?" She almost laughed, like before, as if any of this was normal. "Why now?" she finally asked. There was a pause. Then, too quickly, "She won't eat." Harper froze. "What?" "She's not eating," he said again. "I mean, I tried everything. Different food, new toys, even that pumpkin stuff you used to mix in." "Which she's allergic to." Silence. Of course he didn't remember. "She whines a lot, stares at the door. I think she misses you." Harper let that hang in the air. No satisfaction. Just truth. She could have said a million things, "I told you so, you don't deserve her, go to hell." But instead she simply said, "She's home now." "Yeah, but..." He stumbled. "Don't you think it's unfair to just take her without letting me say goodbye?" "You didn't say goodbye to me," Harper said flatly. "You just took her and posted her like a prop." "That's not fair." Harper's voice sharpened. "Neither is losing the one soul who slept at the foot of my bed every single night for 2 years." The line went quiet again. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller. "What do you want?" There it was. The shift. Eli, finally out of control, finally understanding he had no leverage left. Harper took a breath. Not to gloat, not to wound, but to end it. I want you to send over her adoption records, her microchip information, the vet files, everything, and then I want you to never contact me again. You're serious. She's not a souvenir, Eli. She's family, and you were just visiting. He didn't argue. Not this time. She hung up before he could try. Junie patted over and laid her chin on Harper's knee. Her eyes were soft, trusting, forever. Harper ran her fingers behind Junie's ears, where the fur was always fluffier. Guess we broke him, she whispered. Junie thumped her tail once. That was all the answer she needed. Eli sent the documents 2 days later. No note, no apology, just a manila envelope slid under Harper's door like a cowardly peace offering. Inside were the original shelter adoption papers, Junie's microchip certificate, and an old vaccination record. Half the fields left blank. She examined them one by one, then placed them in a plastic sleeve and filed them in the folder labeled Freedom. It wasn't just about ownership anymore. It was about closure. About putting her name back on everything he had tried to erase her from. She scanned every page and emailed copies to her vet, her lawyer, and herself. There would be no more gray areas. Junie was hers again. On paper, in spirit, in every wag of her tail. That night, Harper posted a photo. Just one. It was Junie curled beside her on the couch, eyes closed, paws twitching mid-dream. No caption. No need. Within an hour, the comments came pouring in. Wait, I thought she was with Eli? She looks so much happier now. Omeng Junie's home. She didn't answer any of them, but Eli did. A few hours later, his story showed a bottle of whiskey and some vague quote about fake people. Then a black screen with white text. Some of y'all need to remember who you were before the internet. It was laughable, really. The way he spun it like he had been betrayed. Like Harper had somehow stolen what had always been hers. She muted him permanently after that. No more digital breadcrumbs, no more mind games. The next morning, Harper took Junie to their old walking trail. The one by the lake where Junie used to chase ducks but never quite catch them. The second they arrived, Junie perked up, tail high, ears alert, pulling forward like she knew this place. Harper let her off the leash, and Junie ran. She didn't sprint aimlessly. She zigzagged down the path with precision, pausing to look back every few yards, like she wanted to make sure Harper was still coming. She was. At the water's edge, Junie barked once, sharp and joyful. Harper laughed, a real laugh, the kind that caught in her throat from disuse. She sat on the bench beneath the willow tree and watched her girl splash along the edge. This was what Eli never understood. Dogs didn't care about optics. They didn't pose for attention or stay out of guilt. They came back to where they were safe, where they were loved. Harper leaned back, letting the breeze carry away everything she'd held on to for too long. She didn't need to make Eli beg anymore. He already had. And Junie? She'd made her choice long ago. The video wasn't supposed to go viral. Harper had only uploaded it to her private account. A short clip of Junie at the lake, bolting into Harper's arms after a long run, practically launching herself with enough force to knock Harper backward into the grass. The laughter, the bark, the sudden joy of it all. It was pure, unfiltered connection. She didn't add music or filters, just captioned it. She came back the moment she saw me. No command, just love. By morning, it had been shared over 10,000 times. People in the comments weren't just reacting to the dog. They were telling their own stories. About custody battles, about being erased, about love that can't be leashed. This is what loyalty looks like. Crying because my ex took our dog and I never got to say goodbye. Thank you for this. She knew who her real person was. Harper read them all with a mix of disbelief and aching validation. She wasn't alone. This wasn't just her war. It was a quiet, universal pain she hadn't known so many others carried too. Then came the messages. Reporters. advocates, even a couple lawyers offering pro bono advice. And somewhere, amid the noise, a direct message from Eli's new girlfriend. Short, cold. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Harper didn't reply. She simply archived it and turned back to Junie, who was snoozing in a patch of sunlight, snoring softly, belly exposed in perfect trust. It wasn't about enjoyment. It was about justice. And if the internet wanted to help carry that torch, so be it. Later that evening, Harper received an email from a pet wellness brand. They'd seen the video, loved the message, wanted to sponsor a post featuring Junie. Harper stared at the screen, stunned. This wasn't just a reunion anymore. It was a platform. A voice. She clicked reply. Yes, let's talk. Because if Junie's story could help even one more person take back what they were made to feel unworthy of, it was worth it. And somewhere, Harper knew, Eli was watching this all unfold. But unlike before, there was nothing he could take now. She had the dog. She had the truth. And now she had the story. The sponsorship came with a photo shoot. Harper wasn't a model, and Junie certainly wasn't trained for anything fancy. But the photographer, some gentle-eyed woman named Layla, made it feel easy. They met at a quiet park just before sunset, when the light turned everything gold and forgiving. Layla crouched low, camera clicking gently, cooing encouragements at Junie as she sat obediently beside Harper on a picnic blanket. Junie didn't need much coaching. She was happy just being close, nuzzling Harper's side, eyes bright with that quiet loyalty that never needed words. "God, she adores you," Layla murmured between shots. "She's the one who saved me," Harper said, almost without thinking. The photos turned out stunning, soft, radiant, intimate. One shot captured Junie mid-lick on Harper's cheek, Harper laughing, half turned toward her with closed eyes. It wasn't just photogenic. It was undeniable. Real love, tangible. Harper posted one. Just one. Captioned, "She was never a thing to win or lose. She's my heart on four legs." It exploded. Hundreds of thousands of views. Comments from around the world. People sent photos of their own reunions, their lost pets, their emotional scars from breakups that took more than just romance away. One woman wrote, "He got the dog. But this story helped me remember I still got to keep myself." Harper sat with that message for a long time. She hadn't realized how much of herself she'd handed over to Eli, piece by piece, compromising until compromise turned to erasure. But Junie had stayed whole, and when she came back, she brought pieces of Harper with her, ones she thought were gone forever. That night, as she closed her laptop and looked down at the sleeping dog beside her, Harper whispered, "We're helping people, Junie. Can you believe that?" Junie's tail thumped once, even in sleep. The next morning, Harper got another message, this one from a small rescue organization upstate. They needed help rehoming dogs caught in contested divorces and separations, cases where pets became collateral damage. Would Harper be willing to share their mission? She stared at the screen, stunned. She hadn't gone looking for a cause. She just wanted her dog back. But maybe the story was bigger than her now. Maybe what started with heartbreak and a missing leash could turn into healing for more than just her. She clicked reply again. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Junie stirred beside her, rolling onto her back, paws in the air. And Harper realized this wasn't just a win. This was a beginning. Harper didn't expect to run into Eli again. Not in person. But fate's cruelest jokes always came when you least wanted them. And this one hit her on a Thursday evening, standing in line at the local coffee shop with Junie at her side. Junie saw him first. Her body stiffened. Her ears twitched. Not fear, but recognition. Harper followed her gaze. And there he was. Eli, holding a phone in one hand and an iced latte in the other, casually leaning against the pastry case like the last few months hadn't happened. Like he hadn't tried to erase her from Junie's life. Like he hadn't begged, threatened, and disappeared in the span of a week. Their eyes locked. He blinked, surprised, maybe a little ashamed. Junie didn't move, didn't pull toward him, didn't whine. She just sat. Harper gave a single nod, civil, distant. He walked over slowly, hesitant. "I saw the posts," he said, voice lower than usual. "You and Junie, you really leaned into all this, huh?" Harper studied his face. Still handsome, still hollow. "I didn't lean into anything. I just told the truth." Eli looked down at Junie. "She looks good." "She is." A beat passed. The air between them felt thin. "People are messaging me," he added, calling me a narcissist, a thief, saying I don't deserve dogs. Harper raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" He frowned. "That's not fair." She took a slow breath, keeping her voice level. "What's not fair is taking something just because you can. Keeping it because it hurts someone else. You never wanted her, Eli. You wanted the image of her. The way people looked at you when you had her on a leash, like you were gentler than you were." He said nothing. Harper knelt beside Junie and scratched her chin. "She doesn't miss you." That part wasn't meant to sting. It was just true. Eli's jaw clenched. "I get it. I was the bad guy." Harper stood. "Number you were just the wrong one." She turned, ready to walk away, when Eli muttered, "You look different." She glanced over her shoulder. That's what healing does. And with that, she walked out. Junie trotted beside her, tail high, the leash loose and easy between them. Harper didn't look back. Not once. Because she knew now what she hadn't back then. When someone tries to make you beg for what's already yours, walking away isn't weakness. It's power. And this time, she was the one holding the leash. Harper didn't tell anyone about running into Eli. Not at first. It felt like an echo of a life she no longer claimed. A ghost brushing past her in broad daylight. But that night, as Junie slept curled against her side, Harper opened her laptop and started writing. Not a caption. Not a post. A full essay. She didn't hold back. She wrote about the breakup. About losing Junie. About watching someone use her dog like a prop and having to fight. Not just for custody, but for the right to matter. She wrote about the guilt of doubting herself, the fury of being dismissed, the ache of feeling erased. And she wrote about coming back. About Junie running to her without hesitation. About what loyalty looks like when it has fur and 4 legs and remembers everything you ever whispered in the dark. By the time she was done, it was 2 a.m. She titled it, "She Was Never Just a Dog," and she submitted it to a major online magazine before she could second-guess it. By morning, her inbox was flooded. The editor replied in all caps, "Yes, yes, yes." The piece went live 3 days later. The response was instant, explosive. People shared their own heartbreaks, losing pets and separations, not being allowed to say goodbye, watching someone else walk away with the only thing that had made them feel whole. Some messaged Harper privately, thanking her for saying what they hadn't found the words for. And in the storm of it all, one message stood out. A woman named Claudia, mid-30s, said she was fighting for custody of her cat after her ex had moved out and forgot to leave the carrier. She'd felt silly, ashamed even, until she read Harper's story. Now she wasn't backing down. That one message stuck with Harper for days. Because what started as her own revenge had become something else. Something bigger. A ripple. A movement. Proof that pain, when spoken, could connect people instead of just breaking them. Harper created a new page. Not just a pet. A space for stories like hers. Like Claudia's. Like the hundreds more still waiting to be told. Junie became the mascot, of course. Her picture sat proudly on the homepage, eyes bright, tongue lolling like she knew she'd started a quiet revolution. Harper looked at her and whispered, "You brought me back to life." Junie rolled over onto her back, paws in the air, waiting for a belly rub. And Harper smiled, realizing something she hadn't felt in months. Peace, not revenge, not victory, just peace. And maybe that was the real win. The first in-person meetup was small. Just 6 women, 2 dogs, and one community center that smelled vaguely of old coffee and cleaning spray. But to Harper, it felt enormous. She sat in a circle of folding chairs, Junie at her feet, listening as people went around, sharing stories that echoed her own. Breakups that split families, pets treated like furniture, courtrooms that didn't understand that a dog wasn't property. It was love. One woman choked up while describing her golden retriever, taken by her ex who'd never even wanted a dog to begin with. Another talked about being blocked from her cat's Instagram. Yes, her cat had an Instagram, and how humiliating it felt to be cut out like she was the one who left. Harper nodded through every word. When it was her turn, she told them about Junie, about the day she came running back without a word, like her soul knew where home was. That's what makes it different, Harper said, her voice clear. They don't need paperwork to prove who we are. They know. Afterward, 2 women hugged her. One handed her a thank you card with nothing inside but a single sentence. "You reminded me I'm not crazy." That card went on Harper's fridge. A few weeks later, the community center invited her back, this time to lead. She didn't hesitate. She put together a short presentation, printed handouts, even brought dog treats for the 4-legged attendees. Junie wore a bandana that read, "Emotional support icon." The room was full this time. Word had spread. They didn't just come for support. They came for strategy. For hope. For someone who'd lived through the hurt and come out not just standing, but standing taller. And Harper delivered. She showed them how to gather documentation, how to speak to mediators, how to phrase their stories so courts would listen. But most importantly, she told them they weren't alone, that their love wasn't invalid just because a relationship ended. One woman asked, "Do you ever worry he'll try to take her back?" Harper looked down at Junie, curled beside her, head resting on one paw, perfectly content. "No," she said softly, "because he already lost her. He just didn't realize it until the door closed." The room was quiet after that, heavy, affirming. Harper didn't need applause or headlines. She just needed this. A circle of people learning how to protect what they love, not with claws or lawyers, but with quiet, unwavering strength. Junie looked up at her, tail wagging gently. And Harper smiled. The war was over, but the work had just begun. Harper never thought she'd get invited to speak at a conference. But there she was, standing backstage at the Pet Wellness and Advocacy Expo, badge clipped to her cardigan, Junie freshly brushed and waiting patiently at her side like she belonged on every billboard in the building. It still felt surreal. Just months ago, she'd been curled up in bed crying into Junie's fur, unsure of what came next. Now she was being introduced as a community advocate and founder of the Not Just a Pet initiative. The host smiled and said into the mic, "This next speaker reminds us that love doesn't always come with a wedding ring or a birth certificate. Sometimes it comes with muddy paws and a heart that never leaves your side." Harper stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright, but she wasn't nervous, because this time she wasn't alone. She told her story about the breakup, the dog, the loss, the fight, and the unexpected healing. She spoke clearly, with purpose. People in the audience nodded, wiped tears, laughed softly when she described Junie bolting through the farmer's market like a furry missile aimed straight at her soul. She ended with a simple line. "They say dogs can't speak. But mine told me everything I needed to hear, just by choosing me." Applause filled the room. Not wild or performative, just warm, honest. Afterward, people lined up to thank her. Some brought photos of their pets. Others just wanted to hug Junie. One woman, older with silver hair and trembling hands, whispered, "My daughter lost her dog in a custody battle. She still cries at night. I'm going to send her your story." Harper pressed her hand gently. "Tell her she's not alone." And she never was. That night, in the hotel room, Harper lay on the bed while Junie dozed beside her, her paw resting lightly on Harper's wrist like a tether. She scrolled through social media, not for comments or likes, but for impact. a message popped up from a law student. "I'm writing my thesis on pet custody law. Your story changed my entire focus." Harper stared at the screen, stunned. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It wasn't even just healing. It was change. Real, lasting change sparked by one quiet woman and one brave dog who found their way back to each other. She reached down and stroked Junie's soft fur. "Look what we started," she whispered. Junie didn't wake, but her tail thumped twice against the sheets. Harper smiled, eyes glistening. This was more than closure. It was legacy. The email subject line read, "Request for interview, National Morning Show." Harper read it 3 times before it sank in. They wanted her. June 2. A full segment on pet custody, emotional healing, and how one viral story helped change how people and courts view the bond between humans and animals. At first, Harper hesitated. She wasn't a TV person. She wasn't polished or prepped or media trained. She was just a woman who'd lost something she loved, fought to get it back, and accidentally found her voice along the way. But Junie had always been ready for the spotlight. The morning of the interview, Harper sat in the green room, smoothing invisible wrinkles in her blouse while Junie snoozed at her feet, perfectly unfazed. A makeup artist dabbed under Harper's eyes, saying, "You know, I read your article. It made me call my ex about our cat." "Thank you." Harper smiled faintly. "What happened?" The woman paused. "He's bringing her over this weekend. Said she always seemed like she was waiting by the door for me." That was enough to steady her nerves. The segment itself felt like a blur. The host asked thoughtful questions. Harper answered honestly. No dramatic flair, no rehearsed lines. Just the truth. About how love doesn't stop when the relationship ends. About how silence is its own kind of wound. About how Junie never needed a courtroom to tell her where she belonged. When the host asked if she had a message for people still fighting for their pets, Harper looked into the camera and said, "Don't let anyone tell you it's just a dog. If it hurts, it matters. And if they chose you once, they'll find a way back." Afterward, the producer pulled her aside. "That was powerful," he said. "We're getting emails already." Harper nodded, emotion pooling behind her eyes. Later, back at home, she curled up on the couch with Junie and watched the replay. Seeing herself on screen was strange, like watching a version of her that had grown braver while she wasn't looking. She muted the TV and whispered to Junie, "We're not victims anymore." Junie gave a quiet little huff, then pressed her nose to Harper's cheek. The moment was simple. No applause, no camera flash. Just the two of them, heartbeats aligned in a home that had once felt hollow and now felt holy. Harper realized she didn't need another interview, another article, another podium. She already had everything. Love, peace, and a dog who had never, not once, stopped choosing her. It was raining the morning Harper signed the final papers. Not divorce papers, not court documents. Those were already long behind her. This was something else entirely. A lease, a new address, a new beginning. She was leaving the apartment she and Eli had shared for nearly 3 years. Not because it held bad memories, though it did, but because she was finally ready to stop living in places built on compromise. She found a small house with a yard and a little porch, tucked on a quiet street with trees that bloomed in soft pink every spring. A place where Junie could run freely, where Harper could finally breathe without flinching. The movers didn't take long. Most of what she owned was hers now. Chosen, kept, and fought for. Junie wandered from room to room, tail wagging as she explored their new home. She found her bed in the corner of the sunroom, nose already pressed to the window before Harper even finished unpacking the kitchen. That night, Harper stood barefoot in the backyard, sipping tea as rain whispered onto the leaves. Junie patted beside her, sniffing the grass, stopping only to lean gently against Harper's leg. They didn't need words. The silence said everything. This wasn't just about winning. It wasn't even about Eli anymore. It was about reclaiming every inch of herself she'd ever given away. about knowing that healing doesn't always come in dramatic scenes or grand apologies. Sometimes it's in the steady weight of a dog's head on your lap, in mail with only your name on it, in a lock you bought, a key that only fits your hand. Harper crouched down and cupped Junie's face in her palms. "Thank you," she whispered. Junie blinked, calm and steady as if to say, "I never left. You just had to come back to yourself." Inside, the fireplace crackled to life. The home was quiet but full, of warmth, of safety, of her. She didn't post that night. No story, no caption, no performance. She didn't need the world to see this part. This part was just for them. Because in the end, the loudest revenge wasn't the viral post or the begging texts or even the victory in court. It was this: a life so whole, so unshakably her own, that no one could ever take it again.